Our NFL war rooms continue with the Green Bay Packers, and their biggest free agent signing was a re-signing of Aaron Jones, returning to Green Bay on a 4-year, nearly $50 million deal. Packers lost at home in the NFC Championship game to the Super Bowl champion Bucks. 2 straight 1,000-yard seasons on the ground for Aaron Jones. So let's talk Packers. What they've done in free agency, what they should do in the NFL draft. I'm Chris Hassel, joined by Brady Quinn. We also have Pete Prisco joining us. Went big in free agency on defense last offseason. This offseason, it was more about keeping a couple guys that they really felt were important to this team. You okay with that?
Yes, but they still need to add to this wide receiver group. And I know they get Devin Funchess back, who signed there last offseason, however, opted out of last season. But I don't necessarily know that that's the target wide receiver that they need opposite of Davante Adams. He already kind of plays that bigger body #1 role. You need speed. You need someone else that you can, complement and rely on him. Then I don't think they necessarily have that. And the other position that I think they need to address is cornerback. Even though they signed back Kevin King, he had a bad year last year in a contract year. And look, I'm a Kevin King fan. And so he gets another opportunity to come back and see what he can do. But last year overall, a bad year, and in particular, ending in the NFC Championship game the way it did, it was not a good look. I think that's another position that you got to at least bring in competition, if not look to try to upgrade.
Yeah, and, Kevin King the year before was actually really good. He just, struggled on the biggest stage, and everybody remembers that. But, for most of the previous season, he was actually a really good corner. Struggled a little bit last year, then had an awful playoffs and an awful game against the Bucks that everybody remembers. So maybe they can get him back on track. They still could use another corner, I think, and that's a possibility. I think bringing back Aaron Jones, and you know me, I don't believe in paying running backs, but he's not a running back. He's more of an air guy in their offense, the way they use him. I was okay with that. I like the decision to bring him back. They didn't really address the defensive line, and that's a big concern. I thought they might do something there. They need help on the defensive front.
So, Pete, defensive line more of a concern for you than the wide receiver position?
No, I still think they need to get speed. Look, Valdez-Scantling is one of the explosive playmakers, but you can only count on him to catch every other one, and that's a problem. He can get deep, he can stretch the field, but they still need more speed outside. I think, you look at their linebacker group, they have some young guys they like. Cornerback, I think they're okay. They get by with what they have, but you can never have enough of those guys. But the defensive line has been a problem. They've been pushed around at times. They need to get stronger in there to kind of protect those linebackers and let them run to the football a little bit.
Part of that's been a scheme issue, too. I mean, you only have so many linebackers, so many defensive linemen when you're playing in dime packages on some of those third downs or versus some of those sub packages. You can't stop the run. So some of that's a schematic issue. Again, I look at this and I feel like it's the same thing we were having a conversation with last year going into the draft. Well, what do they need to do? They need to provide Aaron Rodgers some more help. It can't just be Davante Adams. We're having that same conversation because they did nothing last year in the draft, and they really didn't do anything this year in free agency. Look, that worked out last year. It got them to the same point. It didn't get them to a Super Bowl. It didn't give, even in an MVP season for Aaron Rodgers, a chance to win a Super Bowl. And so that's what this is ultimately about in my mind. Whether it's building for Aaron Rodgers right now or building this team for Jordan Love when he eventually takes over, they need to get them more playmakers opposite of Davante Adams.
I feel like that's something we talk about every season with the Packers, and with these mock drafts, we're always hoping that they're going to take somebody, get a toy out there like a Rondale Moore. Do you think they should go for wide receiver with their first-round pick, or can they wait a little bit longer?
Well, I do believe it's a deep draft at the wide receiver position, so I think they could wait and still get a guy who's an impact player. I don't know that you necessarily need to take Rondale Moore in that particular spot. A guy like Rashad Bateman, who I think would be a nice complementary receiver. He's got the speed, he's got the size and ability. Now, the only thing is, Pete just talked about Valdez-Scantling's hands being suspect. Rashad Bateman sometimes had some suspect hands. That's going to be a potential issue, but he's a guy that has a lot of that really #2, potentially could maybe take over for Davante Adams one day if he's no longer there as that #1 wide receiver. So that would be a guy that I would look at with where they're drafting at 29 in the first round of this draft. And if not, as Pete talked about, the cornerback position. A guy like Greg Newsome out of Northwestern. He's got the speed. He's got a lot of the intangibles and the ability. They played in a scheme where really they do isolate those cornerbacks all the way on the outside. He's going to be able to tackle coming from Pat Fitzgerald the way he coaches. He'd be another player that I think you can get at that spot, but potentially even later on in the second round. So wide receiver would be my first thought.
Pete, what do you think they should do with their top pick at number 29 overall?
Get the speed. I mean, let's be real. Get to become the Chiefs, and by that I mean scare people down the field the way the Chiefs do with their playmakers, and that means, you know, whether it's Rondell Moore or Kadarius Toney from Florida, who I think is an electrifying player and timed a lot faster than I think a lot of people thought when he ran under 4.4 at his pro day. Those kind of players can change the way you play on offense. I get it. I'm with Brady. I think there's a deep wide receiver group, and maybe you can wait to try and get one. But I think those two guys will be long gone by the time they come back in the second round. And, you know, there aren't a lot of speed guys out there. There are some in the later rounds, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I think if you can grab one of those guys in the first round, I would do it.
Levi on Wuzurike is the last person listed for Pete there at the bottom of the screen. That's who Ryan Wilson has the Packers taking at number 29 overall. They also have pick number 62. He has him taking Elijah Moore, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. As we move on to days 2 and 3, rounds 2 through 7, who should they be targeting?
Yeah, you got to start thinking about the offensive line, too. I think this is a deep offensive line draft. You can look at some of the interior players, a guy like Trey Smith out of Tennessee, or even a tackle, maybe a guy like Walker Little out of Stanford. Both those guys, I think, potentially could still be there. I'd focus on them. But how about some of these wide receivers, too? I think you could get potentially, you know, second, third, fourth round, depending on how you're viewing this class. But Cornell Powell, who really had a coming out party this year, he's got the, you know, overall speed, but he's like a bigger body wide receiver, a guy who really can make the contested catch. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't know where he's going to go in this draft, and he's a USC player, so take this into account. He's my favorite wide receiver in this draft. I love this dude. He reminds me of a little Steve Smith. You know, when you watch him run, he runs with an attitude. I don't care if it's run blocking, the way he runs his routes. He's very precise in how he goes about doing it, has great hands. And, you know, he's just got that sort of demeanor to him where he goes up and attacks the football. Not the biggest guy, but he plays bigger than his size. So he'd be a steal if they could find a way of getting him to and pairing him next to a guy like Devontae Adams.
You know, it's funny you mentioned your favorite receiver in this draft. One of my favorite receivers in this draft is De'Ami Brown from North Carolina. I love him. I love guys who can fly. He can run by people. He's raw a little bit as a wide receiver, still kind of learning the position, but I think he's good enough running his routes, and he would scare down the field. I think he'd be a great pickup by the Packers. Smith Marsette's another guy who can run. He's a down-the-line guy, but we've seen him with some explosive plays in the Big Ten. And then if they go, you know, big people on the defensive line, Milton Williams from La Tech, great workout, great pro day, active player. McNeil's a big body guy at NC State, and then Tyler Shelvin, another guy who would help them on the interior. So I think they have some options down the line. Speed, speed, speed on offense, and big people and a corner on defense. You
know, Pete's had Tyler Shelvin on a number of his, you know, he's been put up some of these defensive tackles. He's a big Shelvin fan. He's a good player. The McNeil kid out of NC State, he pops a lot on film, too. He would be a great add to this group, and whether it's even to provide depth on what they already had. He'd be a good addition.
All right, Jed, the NFL draft is just 3 weeks away. We're going to have coverage on CBS Sports HQ coming to you when that happens. Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn here on HQ. The Packers, 5-1 in the NFC, 10-1 to win the Super Bowl, heavy favorites in the NFC North. Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.